Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey. With under 2 weeks to go until the Premier League kicks off for yet another season, I thought today would be a good opportunity to take a look at my latest draft, one that I'm actually really happy with as it stands, and with less than 2 weeks to go, it's likely that it won't be too far off this when we get to the deadline. In the meantime, if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content so far, then that would be really appreciated. But for now, let's crack on with the draft. One thing I really like to do at the start of the season is give myself that little bit extra flexibility in the opening few game weeks. And to do that, I quite like having that 0.5 million in the bank at the start of the season, just so I can navigate price rises without being rushed into making transfers early in the week when there's a player that seems to be getting off to a hot start. So with that in mind, I've gone with a draft that's worth 99.5, giving me that 0.5 in the bank. Looking at the goalkeeper and defence all at once to start with, I'm actually really happy with this, and I think more than any other positions in my team right now, this feels quite settled. I've covered off a lot of the best defences, as you can see, so I've gone with Onana in goal, who I think will be really good value at 5 million. I rate him higher than Shaw at present, mainly because you can save that 0.5 million, and I get the feeling that Onana is going to be really good on bonus points, considering the amount of successful passes we expect him to make, as he is quite good at playing out from the back. Moving into defence, we've gone with John Stones to start with as the highest priced defender. Now, he could be seen as a little bit of a risk, but when he's fit, he does tend to start under Pep. At the start of the season, I don't expect too much rotation for Man City. Now, he started being used in that kind of hybrid defence to midfield role towards the end of last season and was getting himself into some pretty decent attacking positions. So I think for that extra 0.5 million, I really like him over the likes of Ake or Akanji, although I am slightly hesitant based on the fact that he doesn't always start every single game. So I've gone with that bench defender to make sure that I'm covered just in case. Moving towards the two 5 million defenders, and these two are in a lot of drafts at the moment, so I won't spend too long on them. Gabriel and Estupiñán are both very popular picks, and with good reason. Gabriel has significant goal threat and has some great fixtures to start with, and should be fairly locked into that Arsenal team. Even though Timber has signed, I expect the partnership of Gabriel and Saliba to be very sturdy to start the season, so I don't think that I'm going to be too worried about rotation threat there. Estupiñán as well had some great underlying data and got 7 assists last season, so I really like his opening few fixtures. I think at 5 million he's still really good value, and he is in a lot of teams at the moment, so if you're brave enough to go against him, he could really punish you. Taking a quick look at the bench, and I don't want to spend too long on this, but Colwill at 4.5 seems like the defender of choice at the moment. The reason being, I do expect him to start for Chelsea. Chelsea's fixtures after game week 1 are pretty solid. If rotation does strike in defence, I'd expect that to be John Stones if anyone. Colwill is a pretty decent enabler to have on your bench, and if he does start the season, he could be good value at 4.5 million in what is historically a pretty solid defence. After that, I've gone Cabor at 4.0. Now, there are a few other options that you could pick from, but I expect Cabor to start, and I also expect him to be playing fullback for Luton, which should provide us a little bit more attacking threat than some of the other 4.0 options. In goal, I've gone with the bench keeper of Areola. I don't think there are too many options that are starting keepers at 4.0 at the moment, and Areola seems as good a bet as anyone to start getting minutes during the campaign. But if a 4.0 keeper stands out in the next couple of weeks and looks like he's going to be starting the season, I will absolutely make that switch. Next up is the midfield, and this, as you can see on screen, is a pretty stacked midfield with no real consideration for budget options, because to be honest, I don't really think that there are that many at the moment. I've really piled the money into this midfield, and I've gone with 4 players between that 9 and 8 million bracket, because I think there's a ton of value there. And considering the fixtures for both Man United and Arsenal at the start of the season, I really want to cash in on them and their attacking potential. To start from left to right, let's have a look at the Man United assets, and I've gone with the double up of Rashford and Bruno. I think with 2 great fixtures in their opening 3 of Wolves and Forest, I expect attacking returns to come. Considering the roles that they play within that team, I think that they are going to be great value. Rashford undoubtedly is good value at 9 million, and I expect him to match what he did last season. And Bruno Fernandes as well, massively underperformed on his data last campaign, and he should be on penalties this season as well. And with Højlund signing for Man United, there might be that talismanic striker that he can aim for, so maybe we'll see a little bit of an uptick in his attacking returns this year if that underlying data is finally matched. Moving to Arsenal, and Saka and Martinelli make a really good double up for me. I really like Saka. He's pretty much locked into my team at this point, a bit like Rashford is. He's on penalties, we think. He did miss a penalty in pre-season, but I still think he'll maintain the penalties. I don't expect Jorginho to start most weeks, and he seems his most threatening teammate in terms of taking penalties off of him. So I expect Saka to take most of the penalties. Now, his data last season was good, but not absolutely blockbuster. But when you add that to the penalty threat as well, I think at 8.5 million and the fixtures that Arsenal have, he seems a pretty simple pick. Now, the one that isn't template at the moment is Martinelli, and I think he's being slightly overlooked at the moment for the sake of that Arsenal forward in Gabriel Jesus. Now, obviously, I've gone with 3 Arsenal players already, so I'm not going to be able to pick Gabriel Jesus up front, but I really like Martinelli as a direct comparison to Jesus. Martinelli does seem to be one of the focal points for most of Arsenal's attacking threat. On the left wing, he's a very direct player. He likes getting his head down and directly dribbling towards goal. Whenever there's any sort of high line or space in behind, Martinelli does seem to profit off of that. And at 8 million, despite any slight rotation threats, I still think he's fantastic value and is being significantly overlooked at the moment with ownership of under 20%. Now, revisiting that rotation threat slightly at the moment, it's important to remember that this draft isn't for the whole season. This is probably going to be the draft for the opening few game weeks, and then transfers start to just flow through your team. So Martinelli is only a player that I'm really interested in owning for the first few game weeks, and then we can assess whether or not rotation might come in when Europe really starts to come in as well. For the first few weeks, I expect Arteta to play his strongest 11, and Martinelli, in my mind at least, is undoubtedly a part of that. So I think considering the low ownership and the very high attacking upside weighted more towards goals than assists, Martinelli is going to be a fantastic pick. Mitoma at 6.5 million is my 6.5 million of choice. I think Brighton's fixtures are just too good to ignore, especially that Luton game in game week 1, and Mitoma is highly owned. Not that I think that high ownership is something that you should massively consider in your teams, but I don't see any 6.5 million assets that are more promising than Mitoma at the moment. And when you're going up against him and his fixtures, I don't really see any players that I'd be brave enough to punt on ahead of him at the moment. And then after game week 3, you can probably have a look around at how the land lies in that 6.5 million bracket and see if any other midfielders are taking your fancy. It is a stacked midfield, but it gives me that flexibility to move across to other really high value picks other than Salah, of course, after the first few game weeks, if any 7.5s or 8 million assets stand up and look like the players to own, I can get across to them pretty easily with so much money in my midfield without having to waste 2 transfers. Right then, so let's not spend any time on Erling Haaland. He's an obvious captain for the first 6 or 7 game weeks, or at least 6 out of 7 game weeks. And even though he's 14 million, he's locked into my team and will be my game week 1 captain. And I think with his ownership up in the high 80s, he's probably going to be in your team too. So let's not elaborate on him too much. The surprise pick for many will probably be Darwin Núñez. Now, he is a player that's crept into my draft as of late, and it might be partly because of pre-season form, so I'm trying to stay neutral and balanced about that because I don't like reading too much into pre-season form. But what has stood out to me is the fact that Klopp does seem to be picking him regularly at the moment, and he's trying to find of system that really plays into Darwin Núñez's strengths, and the way Liverpool are setting up at the moment also suggests to me that they're really trying to squeeze Darwin into the team and make sure that they get the best out of him this season. When you look at how last season went, it's understandable why he's not in a lot of people's drafts at the moment, considering he only got 9 goals for a star striker. That's not a fantastic return. But when you look at the underlying data, we can see that he significantly underperformed on those numbers, and his XG of 0.95 over the campaign is absolutely humongous. If he can match that this season, I have no doubt that he's going to be a significant goal threat for Liverpool. And as you can see, I don't have Liverpool anywhere else in my draft at the moment, so I really like that explosive coverage in game week 2 against Bournemouth, when a lot of people are going to be wondering how they're going to get across to a Liverpool player. I've already got one in my team that I'm fairly confident will start in game week 2 against Bournemouth. Now, obviously that's not 100% nailed and it is a slight risk, but I, at the moment, am swaying on the side of taking that punt because I think the upside, especially at home to Bournemouth in game week 2, could really be worth it. And if he gets off to a stormer against Chelsea, his ownership will start to skyrocket really, really quickly, and 7.5 million for a player of his potential could be absolutely ridiculous value, and to be honest, it could be a lot higher after 2 or 3 game weeks if we're not careful. So at the moment, he's in my team, and because I've not gone for an 8 million striker, I've been able to keep that 0.5 in the bank so I can maneuver my team in the opening few fixtures when I undoubtedly will get something wrong, or a player that I haven't considered gets off to a flyer. I will be able to react with that extra 0.5 million. Now, for the final section today, I've put my current draft into Draft Hound to see how it does in the first few game weeks in terms of the expected points, the average minutes, and the average ownership as well, just to see whether or not I'm onto something here. As you can see, 63.2 points is a pretty decent score in game week 1, and to be honest, I haven't actually seen that many drafts that I've put into Draft Hound that have actually stacked up this well and the expected points. So Draft Hound would consider this to be a pretty strong draft, especially because it's got such a stacked midfield. As you can see across the board, that's some pretty decent points in the first game week. And from game week 2 onwards as well, it looks like the expected points aren't too shabby either. So I really like the look of this draft once I plugged it in. Now, if you want to check out Draft Hound, please do feel free to do so. I've left a link in the description below. If you want to sign up to the premium version, then there is the option to do so, and you'll see a little bit further ahead and compare the future game weeks too, but there's absolutely no need to do that. And if you want to just try out the free version, please do use the link below and check it out. So that's all for today's video, and hopefully you enjoyed my current draft ahead of game week 1 kicking off in under 2 weeks now. Undoubtedly, a few things will change over the next 2 weeks before we reach the kickoff for the 23-24 season, but I really like the look of this draft at the moment, so I'd be interested to know what you guys think of it. If you could leave a comment letting me know what you do think, then that would be massively appreciated. Also, if you've got any of your own questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'll try to get back to all of them before the start of the season. In the meantime, if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content so far, that would be really, really appreciated. It would be amazing to get past 200 subscribers before the start of the campaign. But for now, I hope to see you next time, and enjoy the rest of your pre-season. See you soon.